Okay, before you start watching this video, I gotta tell you, it was a complete failure. So unless you want to see how not to do a lost foam casting, then you can just skip this video. The next video I post will be of a successful casting. I know that for a fact, because if it's not, I just won't post it. So if you want to see how not to do a casting, go ahead and continue on. I explain at the end of the video why I think it didn't work. And also, what does this roller coaster have to do with casting? Absolutely nothing. I just think it's pretty cool, and I thought you'd like to see it. I'm going to try something now that I've never tried before, but I've seen done a few times, and that is lost foam casting. And I meant to record this, but I forgot. But basically, I carved a piece that I need out of foam and covered it in plaster. If you're not familiar with what lost foam casting is, it's basically you carve your piece out of foam and then you bury that in sand, and then you pour the molten aluminum into the top. That's only hollowed out about an inch or so down. And the heat from the aluminum melts out the foam. It basically vaporizes the foam, and the aluminum replaces the foam, and the sand just kind of keeps the form there. And it can be just plain dry sand. Nothing, just playground sand should work. Now, by coating it with plaster, what that will do, again, from what I've seen online, I haven't actually tried this for myself yet, so this is more of an experiment than anything. But by coating it with plaster, that will should give a finished surface more like the finished surface of the foam, however smooth you sand the foam down to. Without the plaster surface, then your final surface finish will look like the sand. Now, this is more of an experiment than anything because I'm using foam that typically people don't use. This type of foam here, I forget exactly what it's called, but this foam is really meant for hobbyists to do carving. It's kind of like, I've heard people call it wood foam, but it kind of carves and sands like a hard balsa wood. So this is much more dense than the typical foam that you would use for lost foam casting. Typically, you would use styrofoam or even that pink or the blue insulation foam that you get at Lowe's or Home Depot. And that stuff burns out very nicely. This stuff, I've never seen anybody try this, and I'm trying it for two reasons. One is, it's what I have, and I don't feel like running out to the store to buy a big sheet of other foam. And also, for a project that I have in mind coming up, I want to carve some pieces using this foam, because you can get some nicer detail with this, and it sands smoother. It's just easier to sand and carve than other types of foam. So if this works, then I'll be able to use this for a future project that I have in mind coming up. Now, the practice piece that I'm using here, this is a piece that I'm going to put on the spot welder. This will be a part for the spot welder that the handle will clamp on here and raise and lower, open and close the jaws of the spot welder. So if it doesn't work, then I'll know that this foam isn't good for that. If it does work, then I'll know the foam is good, and I'll have a part for my spot welder. So let me get this. The first step is to bury it in a bucket of sand. So I've got a bucket, I've got some sand out in the backyard, so I'm just going to bury it down. I'll bring the sand right up to the top. I'll probably put some aluminum foil here just to keep sand from falling in. Technically, I didn't really have to hollow that out any. I just thought I'd give myself it'd give me a target for aiming to pour the aluminum in, and also give the aluminum a head start so it doesn't just hit here and spill before it starts melting. Again, theoretically, I shouldn't really have to do that at all, but I thought it'd be better than not. So let me go get this buried in a bucket of sand, and we'll get back with it when I'm ready to melt some aluminum. All right, so here's the forge. Crucible's in there. It's not turned on yet, so I'm just going to position that so it's good for when I pick it up. Got some aluminum in there. Let's go ahead and turn on the heating here, and I'll close the lid, and we'll come back when it's all nice and melty. And there's the part in the sand and for any excess. Well, it either worked or it didn't. Kind of made a mess. We'll let it cool down and see what it looks like. Well, I was right, because I said it either worked or it didn't. And it didn't. So, made a heck of a mess though. So, yeah, this foam is just way too dense, and it just, I don't know how much kind of heat it's going to take to melt it, but yeah, it didn't even touch it. This was actually, it was just kind of glued on like that, so it broke off. But at first I was kind of wondering if it was the method I used, as far as, because what I see a lot of people do is the top of their piece, they'll actually put like a styrofoam cup, like like a styrofoam cup, and pack the sand around that, and that gives them a nice well to pour into. And I didn't really do that. I just kind of made a chintzy dam out of aluminum foil. But you see this area right here? That is actually the foam that did not melt. I mean, it made a lot of smoke, but I think it just burned the foam. It didn't really melt it. So that's still foam sticking up that didn't melt. And there's some more here that didn't melt. It basically, remember, I kind of drilled a hole. That's as far down as I drilled a hole. And I got real close to the sidewall here. It basically just kind of went to here and just kind of overflowed. It just couldn't melt down any further. And where that touched here, it just barely singed the foam. I mean, it didn't even really burn into it much. It just kind of singed it a bit. So all that hot molten metal, and all it did was kind of just char the foam. So yeah, I really need to use the right stuff. And I would try again today, but it's like 1,000,000 degrees outside. I mean, literally, the thermometer says 1,000,000. And it's only supposed to get hotter tomorrow, and hotter the next day, and hotter the next day. So this might just wait until week after next. So yeah, I'm sweating my butt off here. So I'm just going to put this away, turn the camera off, and go in the house and enjoy the AC. One other thing that I'm really concerned about, or not concerned about, but confused about. I was using some of these and this. See, when I did the that little V8 engine block, if you haven't seen that video, hold on. This is a little V8 aluminum engine block that this was a lost wax casting, or actually a lost PLA casting. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one. And the aluminum I used for this was the leftover aluminum that I used. So what was left over, I just kind of poured it into a piece of angle iron, and that was the leftover stuff. Well, a few months ago, I was at a thrift shop, and they had a bag of these. And I'm not sure, I assumed they were aluminum. It looks like somebody melted some aluminum, poured it in a little coffee tin or something. And, but now that I'm thinking about it, that is a lot heavier. I'm kind of wondering if maybe this is lead. I don't know. Because these melted really quick, and this never did melt. I had that in the pot. You can see where it's kind of sticking around here. I had that in the pot. They're in the crucible, and these got all melty, and this just didn't do anything. And so I finally just gave up, got tired of waiting, so I pulled this out and I put another one of these in and let those melt down. And now that I'm talking out loud, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, that doesn't feel as heavy as lead, but it's heavier than this. And it's probably, I mean, I know they're completely different shapes, but this probably has less material than this, less mass in it, but it's heavier. So I don't know, maybe that's not aluminum. Yeah, so maybe I just wasn't patient enough. Maybe I didn't get it to the full temperature of molten aluminum. One thing about my my forge is that the controller is kind of fried. The controller doesn't work anymore, so it's just on full blast. What I need to do is get a thermocouple, and so I can stick the thermocouple into the crucible to actually get a reading of the temperature of whatever the molten metal is. So yeah, as I'm talking out loud, I'm kind of wondering if I got lead here instead of aluminum. So yeah, I'm a dummy. But anyways, even at that temperature, it barely even touched the foam. I mean, it didn't, like I said, it didn't even really melt the foam, just made a big mess. So I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to get the correct foam. I want to get the right stuff. I'm going to get stuff that I know is aluminum, and I'll try it again. But like I said, not this week, because it's just way too friggin' hot. So I'm trying to decide if I want to make this its own video, or if I just want to, you know, save this and continue on after the fact. So maybe I'll do that. I'll do that. So yeah, let me get the right stuff going, and I'll show you how that turns out, probably next week. But of course, to you, it's only going to be in a couple of seconds. Anyways, it's hot. I'm tired. My brain's fried. Okay, so I changed my mind as far as continuing on with this video. I'm going to go ahead and post this one. And because I think a lot of people want to see a video on how to do something, so they don't want to spend the first half of it seeing how it doesn't work. You know, you want to see how it does work. So this is just a failure video, and like I said, when I get some better materials, I'll try it again. So until then, as always, thanks for watching.